not in my words, not in that way, not in my name, not in my faith, not in my words, not in that way.
Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings of God be with you viewers, and welcome to another edition of Muslim Perspectives. Today we have a very special feature featuring Nisa Homes, and with us we have a representative from Nisa Homes, Sister Yasmine Youssef. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him and we ask Him for guidance and forgiveness, and we seek protection in Allah from the malice of our own souls and the evil of our actions. Whom Allah guides, no one can lead him astray, and whom He makes astray, no one can lead him back to the right path. I bear witness that there is no other deity but Allah by Himself and no associate to Him, and I bear witness that Muhammad is His servant and His messenger. In Canada, rates of police reported family violence against children and youth, intimate partners and seniors all rose in 2019, the last year that official statistics I was able to find. The overall rate of police reported family violence increased for the third consecutive year, rising 13% over that period. This follows a long span of decline, with the rate falling by almost 1/5 from 2009 to 2016. There were approximately 400,000 victims of police-reported violent crime in Canada in 2019. Of these, 1/4, 26%, or more than 100,000 people were victimized by a family member, that is a spouse, a parent, a child, a sibling, or extended family member perpetrated the violence. Women and girls accounted for 2/3, 67% of all victims of family violence in 2019. Women and girls also accounted for over half of child and youth and senior victims of family violence, almost 4/5 of all victims of intimate partner violence. Family violence that came to the attention of police was most often perpetrated by a current spouse, 31%, or a parent, 20%, followed by a former spouse, 13%, a sibling, 11%, or the victim's child, 11%. Muslims in Canada are not immune to these traumatic occurrences. And Allah in the Quran tells us, and of His signs is that He created for you from yourselves mates, that you may find tranquility in them. And He placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, in that are signs for people who give thought. That's from chapter 30, verse 21. The Prophet ﷺ advocated and taught that the best of you is the one who is best to his wife, and I am the best of you to my wives. The best of you, he also said, the best of you are those who are best to the women folk. In Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's last sermon, he said, O people, it is true that you have certain rights with regard to your women, but they also have rights over you. If they abide by your right, then to them belongs the right to be fed and clothed in kindness. Do treat your women well and be kind to them, for they are your partners and committed helpers. So that's the framework within which our Islamic teachings guided us. But with human beings, we are all weak, and there are times when psychological effects or just pure evil takes over, and we have this result. So here today we are to discuss a particular service offered by Nisa Homes. Sister Yasmine, can you tell us something about Nisa Homes, what it does, and how long has it been in operation?
Yes, so alhamdulillah, we started Nisa Homes in 2015, and what we do is we're a project of the National Zakat Foundation, which is a registered charity, and what we do is provide transitional homes for women and children that are fleeing domestic violence, as well as women and children that are experiencing any kind of homelessness, due to poverty or seeking refuge in Canada. So we give them a place to stay. We have 8 homes across Canada, alhamdulillah, and we give them a place to stay in these homes for approximately 3 months. And we have a system, we have a program in place for those 3 months so that they can get back on their feet, they can resolve any issues that are causing them to be homeless in the first place. And then inshallah, our goal is that they move out and they become independent and self-sufficient within those 3 months or within the few months afterwards.
What triggers a potential client to contact NISA Homes?
Most of the cases that we have are domestic violence, so women that are experiencing abuse at the hands of their husbands or at the hands of their parents or even their in-laws. We get that quite often. So most of the time it's a last resort. It's not something that happens, there's an argument or something. No, usually they're coming to us because there really is no other option. They've tried everything. They've tried getting help, they've tried mediation, they've tried what they can, and they've gotten to a point where unfortunately it's just not working. It's not feasible, or they're not safe. They're not safe in their homes, their children might not be safe, so they reach out to us. A lot of times it's just to understand what's available, how we can help, what they can do. And then we work with them. We try to come up with a safety plan, so a way to make sure that they're safe, regardless of whether they choose to come or whether they choose to stay. We try to make sure that they're safe. That's our top priority. And then after that, we will work with them. If they want to reconcile, if they want to, get mediation, we'll make that available. If that's not possible, then we'll work to have them come to our homes and help them restart their lives.
It's not a crisis center as such, in the sense that somebody is experiencing an immediate safety issue. They shouldn't be contacting NISA Homes, or should they be?
No, we're not an emergency shelter. I think that's the difference. So a lot of people don't know the difference between an emergency shelter and a transitional home. And the reason we chose to do a transitional home and not an emergency shelter was emergency shelters are just that immediate emergency support for a couple of weeks, and then you're kind of left to figure it out on your own. We found that the women that are coming to us and the women that were approaching us before we even opened, they needed more support. They didn't just need a place to stay for a week or two. They needed support to get back on their feet. They needed support to find jobs, to find income, to find school, whatever it may be. They needed that support, and that support takes much more than a couple of weeks. I mean, finding a job, it doesn't happen in a couple of weeks. Finding a place to stay, a house to rent or an apartment or anything like that, it takes months. Especially with the market right now, it's become harder and harder for them to be able to get back on their own feet without support from us or anyone else.
You mentioned that you operate in you have 8 homes. Can you give us a broad spectrum in terms of the cities where these homes are?
Yes, so we have, currently our homes are located, we have one in Mississauga, we have one in Scarborough, we have one in Ottawa, Windsor, Montreal, we just opened last month, alhamdulillah, and Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver.
MashaAllah. What sort of services can a client expect once they have been, selected or approved by NISA Homes to participate in NISA Homes, services?
So we try to be as holistic as possible. We know that obviously having a roof over your head is very important, but so is your mental health and so is your well-being. So we provide the full spectrum as much as we can. So we provide the roof over their head, the basic necessities, food, medicine, clothing, just the basics that they need. We also provide child care, so moms that come with their children. And unfortunately, about 50% of our clients are children under the age of 12. Mm-hmm. So moms that come with their children, it's quite a big number. That's almost 400, more than 400 children at the moment that we've helped through our program. And it's, it's very difficult to see the children experience this too, and maybe we can talk about that later, but we provide childcare for them as well as support for the moms to deal with the children. A lot of the children, of course, they've experienced trauma, they've witnessed trauma, they come with a lot of challenges that we also need to factor in. We also provide counseling for both the moms and resources for the children. We provide casework, which I think is, the main bulk of what we do, because we help them with the employment, with the housing. Those are our two main focuses. We also try to help them with legal support. We try to help them with accessing any other resources. A lot of the clients we get are refugees or don't have status, so we help them with their immigration file, so, support them in that process. And then obviously we have programs in the home, so when they're in the home we'll do activities like cooking therapy, we'll do arts and crafts, we'll do yoga, just different things to keep them busy, and also skill-based programs too. So we'll teach them how to use a computer sometimes, we'll teach them English if they're new to the country, we'll teach them other skills like financial skills, how to save, how to budget, life skills that they basically need when they move on. And the reason for that is a lot of the clients that we get, they're women that have experienced abuse, and one of the main forms of abuse is financial abuse, is isolation, is controlling behavior. So what ends up happening is these women, they might have been in Canada for years, but they still have no idea how to speak English. They don't know how to use a bank account. They don't even know how to use the transit system. We've had clients that have been in Canada for over 20 years, and it's like they've just arrived yesterday. So we're starting with a clean slate, essentially, and trying to teach them the basics and then help them move forward with that. So a lot of it does take time to just educate them on these things. And of course, other things that we have is referrals and resources in the community, both within the Muslim community and outside. So within the Muslim community, we do try to connect them to masajid or mosques. We try to connect them with Imams. A lot of times they need help with, religious divorce or just, religious guidance. So we make sure that we have those connections in the community. And then I mean, other than that, we do provide financial support. Of course, like I mentioned, financial abuse is a big thing. A lot of them come with nothing but the clothes on their back. So we make sure that, we at least give them a fighting chance by helping them, for example, pay their first and last month's rent, helping them get furniture, just helping them start off so that they're not struggling to even get started.
Are you in any way work in collaboration with social services, for example?
Yes, yeah. So we're in touch with all the social services in any city that we're in. We connect with, the local police station. We connect with Children's Aid Society. We connect with victim services, settlement organizations. Basically, any social services that exist at welfare, we connect with them just to make sure that we're serving the clients in the best way possible. We want to take advantage of all the resources available. We can't do everything for them, and no other resource can. But if we work together, then we're ensuring that everything is covered, inshallah.
So you become sort of like a member of the extended family of that client. Exactly.
And a lot of these women, subhanAllah, when they come to us, they come without a lot of them are new to Canada or have been here, but they don't have family here. They don't know anyone here, and they build that community within the home. Many of them that come, they end up referring to us as their sisters, and not just, Islamically, we refer to each other as sisters, but they truly believe that they have a family now. They have someone that can support them and someone who's got their back. And they move out sometimes together. They end up living together. They end up working together. They create the family that they don't have. So, alhamdulillah, definitely.
And in terms of, you speak in terms of a typical or average client being a woman with children.
Yeah.
You had mentioned seniors as well. Why would a senior person come to you for services? They've reached the, autumn of their lives.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not always the case. We do definitely have seniors that are abused by their children. So we've had a few cases where we've had women that are living with their children, and their children no longer want them to live there, or they treat them really badly and they can't survive there anymore. We had a case a couple of years ago where a grandmother, living with her children and her grandchildren, they had her living in a broom closet, and they took away all her money, all her savings, everything that her and her husband had accumulated after he passed away. They tricked her into somehow signing away everything, and she was left with nothing. They mistreated her, put her in a broom closet. They wouldn't even allow her to play with her grandchildren. And it got to a point where she was like, I can't, this is not living. I can't live like this. And she reached out to us and we helped her. And it's really unfortunate. It's not the only time we've dealt with similar cases that it does happen. Alhamdulillah, it's not one of our biggest, it's not the main reason a lot of women come to us, but it does happen.
Elder abuse?
Yeah, definitely.
To that degree?
Yeah. Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
What would you do for somebody with that experience?
You know what
because
I say?
It's betrayal to the max.
It is 100%. And you see these women and you see them, they're at a point in their lives where all they want is just to spend time with their family, right? You're done working, you're done doing all that stuff. So it really is heartbreaking, and it's not right. It's Islamically not right. There's nothing that justifies it. I mean, nothing justifies abuse anyway. But I do think that, what I tell everyone is, if you're not feeling safe, reach out for information at the very least. Sometimes education is possible. Sometimes you can talk to the family, work something out. Sometimes, if we support the woman, she can get her own place. The relationship sometimes can improve. But unfortunately, there's nothing we can guarantee. I think education goes a long, long way. We need to educate our children. We need to educate our youth. We need to educate our community in general around abuse, around women abuse, elder abuse, child abuse. We still don't talk about these issues, and what's happening is it's hurting us. It's hurting our community, because at the end of the day, alhamdulillah, we have resources like us, and more Muslim resources are becoming available. But a lot of the resources, sometimes we're full. Sometimes, a woman reaches out to us and we don't have space. What ends up happening? They either stay in that abusive and unsafe home, or they go to a non-Muslim resource. And ultimately, it's much harder to get the support and the community resources and everything if you're not within the community. And so I do think as a community, we definitely need to do more education and awareness about this.
What role, if any, does the masjids or the imams play in this? Are they sensitized to this issue?
They play a huge role. And I wouldn't say they're desensitized. I do think that, until now, majority of our community, especially the newcomer community, if anything happens, the first place they go is the mosque. First place they want to speak to someone is at the mosque, is to the imam. And while imams might be educated Islamically, they're not superheroes that have the answer to everything. And so we need to support our imams. We need to make sure that they have the resources. So if someone reaches out to them, they know, okay, yes, sister, this is who you can call and they'll help you. And at the same time, they do play a role in educating our community, because when people reach out to them, if they're not referring them correctly, and oftentimes, unfortunately, we hear from clients that go to the imams, and the imams tell them, you know what, sister, this is a test from Allah, just be patient. Sometimes it is a test, but sometimes abuse, like you're not safe. They need help. They're coming with bruises and scars, and they're not able to go back home. And you're telling them just go home and withstand it, that this is what you have to do Islamically. So it takes them years then to be able to realize that no, it's not okay for me to be in an abusive relationship. And alhamdulillah, many imams are starting to talk about this and are starting to educate, but we need education in our sermons, in our Friday khutbahs, in the activities we have in the mosque. I mean, pre-COVID, but inshallah we'll get back to this, but in the activities, in the youth groups that we have, in the halaqas that we have, we need to talk about these issues, because the imams have a lot of power in our community, and they need to be able to use that power to educate them and raise awareness and tell them about resources that exist in the community.
And do you have any formal outreach to imams as a collective group to say have workshops or training sessions or webinars that would sensitize them to this particular issue and what steps they should take?
Yes.
When confronted with a case like this?
Yes, so we've done pre-COVID. Unfortunately, COVID has made things a little challenging, but pre-COVID we did do an imam training on domestic violence. We had imams that were actually conducting the training, and we were working with them. And we're planning on doing more of these in the future, inshallah. We also have a resource toolkit. We've worked with others that have put together resource toolkits that we share with them. We have flyers that we give them that just have our basic information just to support them when they need it. And we have connections with them. So we work closely with a lot of imams, just one-on-one, making sure that they can reach out to us when they need our support, and we can reach out to them when we need their support.
Typically, I mean, in a normal pre-COVID setting, I don't know what the situation now, but I'm sure like every Muslim organization out there has funding issues. But the mosques typically raise the most funds.
Yeah.
And their clients would typically be benefiting from your services. When I say their clients, their congregation.
Yeah.
Do you find that they're cooperative in terms of allowing you some of their funding to keep a service like this up and running and efficient?
We do get funding from quite a few mosques, alhamdulillah. So we do have quite a few mosques that have given us, large amounts and smaller amounts depending on, what they have available. So I would definitely say that we have quite a few supportive mosques. I know that they are struggling now, and with COVID it's been a challenge. But we've established a few really good relationships, I would say, across the country. We have good partnerships in Vancouver. We have amazing partnerships in Edmonton and Montreal too. I mean, when we were opening the home, we needed just a little bit of money to meet our goal, and the mosque there pitched in and gave us that remaining amount. So alhamdulillah, I do think that many of them recognize the need for this because, like I said earlier, they're the ones that are dealing with it. The first place that anyone goes most of the time is to the mosque and to the Imam. So they know when it's needed. They know that they've seen how many women come to them, so they know that something like this is needed. So when we're working towards opening a home in any city, we always reach out to the mosque and try to work with them.
Without going into any specific case situation, what are some of the general triggers that you think would get a woman to a point where she needs to reach out to Nisa Homes? Is it psychological? Is it financial issues at home? Is it just, as I was told recently, the love language is different? What are some of the common features do you find? And are these features these sources of these causes, are they trainable? Are they, can you reach out and educate people out of that type of behavior?
So I guess to answer that question, I want to talk about the types of abuse, and that will clarify, some of the issues that we deal with. Of course, there's physical abuse, it says it all, just the hitting or hurting physically. There is the emotional abuse. So a lot of times we refer to it now as gaslighting, or just constantly putting someone down. And by gaslighting, I mean a lot of abusers will tell a survivor or the victim that, oh, it's all in your head, you're imagining it, it's your fault in the first place, you're making a big deal. So making it seem like there is no issue when they know that there's an issue. And with any of emotional, psychological abuse, it's a matter of repetition. Eventually, if you're told you're crazy enough times, you believe it. And so that's what ends up happening a lot of times with the emotional and the psychological abuse. It's that repetitive bringing down, belittling, telling them you're not good enough, you're lucky I married you, no one cares about you, no one wants you, your family doesn't care. Just that constant, if you're constantly berated like that, eventually you start to believe it, and we see that quite often, that they come to us with extreme depression and extreme anxiety because of, they might not have been physically assaulted or physically abused, but the emotional abuse leaves scars that are much harder to heal. So we have that, there's the physical, emotional, psychological, there's the financial abuse. We see that quite often in our community too, in that they have no access to financial independence or resources whatsoever. They have no access to money. They're not even given the opportunity to go purchase things. Sometimes we've even seen it where they're given an allowance and they go purchase something and it's not what the abuser is okay with, that they'll lash out at them. Not having access to a bank account, not knowing how to use a bank account, even if they have their own money. So we've seen it happen where these women are working. She's making money, but he takes all the money. Or she's getting, the child tax benefits or anything like that. The abuser will take all the money and not give her access to it. And this is unfortunately a lot of times thought as, because the man is responsible for the family, that he has to do this. But I don't think it needs to be done to that extreme, It's a partnership at the end of the day. So you have the financial abuse, emotional, you have sexual abuse, of course. And again, that's pretty self-explanatory. think those are the main types of abuse. And what we see most of the time that women resort to reaching out to us, it is a mixture. It never, I mean, rarely is it just one type of abuse and that's it. Usually ends up being multiple types of abuse together, and that's when it reaches a tipping point. But I will also say that studies have shown that it takes women on average 7 attempts before they're able to leave a relationship. 7 attempts of trying to leave. I remember I worked with a client where she would, whenever her husband hurt her, she would pack her bag and go outside in their apartment building, sit on the stairs until the evening, grab her suitcase, go back inside. She just could not leave beyond the stairs. She was too afraid. And there's many factors to consider when a woman doesn't leave. A lot of times we say, well, she's in an abusive relationship, why doesn't she just leave? If she knows he's hurting her, the obvious thing is to leave, but you have to think about these women and what they're in. You have to think about if she doesn't have any resources, financial resources to support herself, if she has children, how is she going to provide for herself and her children? Where is she going to go? She might know about us, but she might not. She might not know that there are resources and shelters that she can go to. So where is she going to go? How is she going to afford to, have her kids, provide anything for her kids or for herself? We've also had women that spend days in their car before they're able to reach out to us or know of us or anything. So it happens. They also have to think about, they might not have friends or family here. They might not have any resources to support them. A lot of times, alhamdulillah, many of us have our family that we can go to. We can go spend a night there. We can reach out to them for help. But what do you do when you don't have anyone here? Another example is, another thing that holds them back is if their immigration status, if they're being sponsored by their husband, they worry that, oh, I'm going to get deported if I do anything, which is obviously, it's not true. The law has changed that if it is an abusive situation, you are allowed to leave without any repercussions, basically. So there's so many factors to consider when a woman thinks about leaving. It's not that easy. It's not you snap your fingers and it's okay. You're also leaving behind, a lot of times they love this person, right? You've built a home together, you've built a family together. You don't want it to end. Even if there's abuse in your head, you're always wondering that maybe things will change, maybe things will get better, maybe if he gets that promotion, or if we get a child, or if things happen,
the next
things
conversation will do it.
Exactly. But sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And I would say, you asked, is there a way to, is there a solution? I would say a lot of times there is, but the person has to be willing to accept that help. There is counseling services out there. There are resources out there for abusers that can help them, but the abusers have to be willing. If they're forced into any of this, 99% of the time, it does not work.
Have you come across alcoholism or infidelity as being causes for these abuse?
Yes, of course. Again, I would say it's in conjunction with other things, with the other forms of abuse. But we have unfortunately seen drug abuse issues, especially with COVID. We've seen quite a few cases where after they're let go of work and things just get out of hand, they do resort to alcohol, they do resort to drugs. Gambling. Oh, we've seen gambling too. We've seen women left on the street because their husband lost everything and they had nowhere to go. We've also seen infidelity, porn addiction. We've seen that too. We've seen everything, unfortunately. So I would definitely say that it happens. I would say it's not as common, alhamdulillah, as just abuse on its own, but a lot of times when we see these issues, they're usually in conjunction with abuse, whether it be physical or emotional. It ends up happening a lot of times. For example, we've had many women who come to Canada they get married in their home country to a Canadian man. They come here only to find out that his parents had forced him into this marriage, but he has a girlfriend, or he has another wife, or he doesn't want to be married, and as a result he doesn't treat her right.
We will be back, listeners, viewers, after this short break.
Not in my faith, not in my words, not in that way.
Welcome back, viewers, and we are really privileged today to have a really serious discussion with Nisa Holmes, and their representative with us today. is Sister Yasmine Youssef. Sister Yasmine, we have explored so many triggers for abuse of women in the families and causes, and how Nisa Homes reaches out to them. And I understand this is the area that you serve. But do you come across men who are abused? And if so, what advice would you give them?
We do. Unfortunately, it does also happen in our community. Most of the time, it does take place. Most of the time, it's youth and children that are abused by family members or just trusted community members, unfortunately, and that's what we've come across the most. I'm just talking about us personally. We've come across many boys, many young men that have been abused, unfortunately in their homes, in their families, their social circles, or even in their schools and such. And there are resources. I don't think it's okay ever for anyone to be abused regardless of anything. It's not acceptable. Everyone, and I mention this all the time, relationships should be safe. And you mentioned this earlier, that most of the time an abuser is someone you know. And this is the same case for men that are abused. It is someone that they know, and it's not as commonly accepted to talk about, but it happens, and it happens in our community, and there are resources. And I would always encourage anyone to reach out to us. We will try our best to get them the resources they need. Fortunately, at this point in time, we only work with women, but we will do our best to make sure that they get the help they need. We'll make sure that they get resources, they get support. A lot of times it is also counseling and psychological support that they need, as with anyone that experiences abuse. So I would say that definitely reach out. There are resources out there. It's not okay, and we're here for you.
Yes, and I'm happy to hear that because so much of our community suffer with traumas in silence, and when they act out behaviorally, and whether they turn to criminality or to self-harm,
or
you
drugs
wonder,
or alcohol.
Yeah, what caused a person to be derailed to that degree?
Yeah.
And it's good that you also, we know that women and young girls are the vast majority of survivors of these situations. And I'm quite happy that you are concentrating on that aspect of greater need. And, but you also spoke about Nisa Homes being a transitional home. Can you explore that concept a bit more for our viewers and tell us what happens after they've transitioned out? Is there any continuing support? Do you have follow-ups? Do you have any really great success stories that you can tell us about?
Definitely. So I want to backtrack to when we started this whole program. And the reason is that when we started it, we did a feasibility study. We actually did research in the community and within social services to understand the needs that exist and to understand the services that exist. And what we found was there was this huge gap when it came to transitional services, that they were so helpful and they were so needed, and yet there were very few of them. And we found that a lot of women did not want to go to shelters, did not want to go to emergency shelters, because there is a stigma around emergency shelters. There is that stigma that it's not safe, it's men and women, there's drugs and alcohol, which is not the case, of course. Many, especially women's shelters, they're very safe. There's no men, obviously. They're very careful when it comes to drugs and alcohol. Some have no drugs and alcohol whatsoever. So they're not like the image that we have, but the reality is they're short term. They are emergency, so they're short term, and they don't provide a lot of that long-term follow-up support. And what we found is that women need more than just a couple of weeks. They need that extra help to stay longer. And from the feedback we were getting, that's what they were asking for, that they needed a place, especially after they leave a shelter. So they might be experiencing the situation, they go to a shelter first, they have a couple of weeks where they just figure things out and settle down, and then they'll come to a transitional home to think about long term. The short term is dealt with in an emergency shelter, for example, and then they come to us and they think about the long term. Okay, where do I want to be? Do I want to go back to school? What job do I want? What housing do I need? And these kinds of things are what we work on with them. And of course, we do provide follow-up because ultimately our goal is that they become independent and self-sufficient. So in order to do that, 3 months is not enough time to become independent and self-sufficient. It sets them on the right path, and that's what we say. We're setting them with the tools to be able to become independent and self-sufficient. Alhamdulillah, what we found is that within the year of when they come to us, majority of them, and I think our latest survey was that 87% were successful in becoming independent and self-sufficient. That means they were, sorry?
Within the year? Within
the year, yes. That means they were providing for themselves and their family through a job or through other, their own business or something like that, and they had their own place. And so alhamdulillah, it's a huge success rate that we're able to see more than 80% of them get back on their own feet, and it happens within that year. So we make sure we continue those follow-ups. You know, we have check-ins with them every week or every other week, depending on what they need. We still continue to send them resources. You know, we have caseworkers that basically work with them to make sure that they're on track, and if anything happens, we're still there for them. Alhamdulillah, you know, we've had amazing success with some of the women that we work with. We had a woman that came to us with, this is one of my favorite stories because she came to us with 8 children. She had come to Canada that same night, and the police had called us because she was on the street, her and her children crying with nowhere to go. They had literally crossed the US border to Canada on foot. And they called us because they had nowhere to go. Everyone had told them, just come to Canada. There was war back home. Just come to Canada and they'll help you. And no one had told them what to do once they got to Canada. And obviously the journey to get here is you know, challenging enough. And so they came to us. Within a couple of months, she had started her own business because she was an amazing cook. We helped her. We got her the tools she needed to start cooking. She started a catering business. We helped her with her first couple of orders to get the word out there. She was able to move out. She continued working. Her kids were helping her, of course. Within the year, she had been able to, she moved out of Nissa Homes into a basement unit, into a 2-bedroom basement unit. It was, you know, it was what she could afford at the time. Within the year, she had moved out to a house. She was able to rent out a whole house for her and her family through her catering business. She bought a car by herself, and she was able to get so much done, alhamdulillah. You know, we even tried to book her for our own event to get her food, and she was booked out. So alhamdulillah, amazing success. We've had other women that have completed their masters while with us at Nissa Homes, and you know, they moved on to get really good jobs, alhamdulillah. We've had women that have started other businesses. We had a woman that started her own cleaning business, and she ended up hiring other women that were at Nissa Homes to help her. So we've seen amazing success with this. It's, you know, just the fact that women are able to get back on their feet within a year shows that this program works, and we're able to actually, you know, the support that we give. And a lot of times people say, well, you know, why do they need all this? There's welfare, you know, there's, you know, government resources. They're not the same as when you have your own community supporting you, when you have sisters and you have women that speak your language. We've had women that go to other shelters, no one speaks their language, and they're just sitting there with nothing to do because they can't communicate. How are they supposed to fix anything? How are they supposed to get back on their feet when they can't speak to anyone? So it's important that we speak their language, we look like them, we understand their culture, we understand their religion, and we use it to support them. We recognize that, you know, you're a person, you're a whole person. Part of being a person is your culture, your background, and so we use that to support them. A lot of times they want to connect with their community, they want to volunteer, they want to do things to help them feel like they're not alone, and so we're able to do that. And it's so important that we realize it's a community effort. And no one can do this on their own.
So you have counseling as well as you have coaching.
Yes.
What are some of the techniques you use in counseling and coaching? Do you have like experts in the field of finance, the psychological experts? I mean, do you have resources that you can tap into, or is it just all volunteer or specialists in their fields?
So we have actual staff that we employ in our homes that are, you know, you mentioned coaching. We call it casework, but it's essentially the same thing. And they are the ones that work with them. They are experts in casework and social work. So we make sure that they have a background in social services, and they help them, you know, with accessing resources and services, fixing their resume, applying for jobs, all of that. This is what the caseworkers help with. We also
So
hire...
the caseworkers themselves are multifunctional in the sense of their abilities.
They are. They've had to be, unfortunately, there are unfortunately still gaps in the services that exist Canada-wide. So a lot of us have to adapt and make sure that, in order to help our client best, we have to, learn a bit about everything. But where we fall short, we make sure we have a resource in place for that. So whether it's, employment, we make sure we are connected with an employment agency that can step in for that. If it's finances, we'll make sure we have someone in the financial field that can come and,
Like a simple thing as doing a family budget.
Exactly. They'll come in, we'll have like a session on budgeting, and we'll have an expert come in from one of the banks, we'll have an expert come in from an employment agency or whatever it may be that they need help with. We'll make sure that if we're not able to, we'll get an expert for that.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And then also just in terms of the counseling, we also have hired counselors. So we have counselors that work out of each home that work with the clients one-on-one. So they'll have a weekly session with them, and they'll also have group therapy. Yeah, group therapy basically. And we believe that obviously, given the nature of what we're dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of mental health issues. It can't be voluntary. We started off with volunteers, and we realized quickly that we need staff to ensure that there's a level of service that is sustainable and it's, efficient and effective.
Have you reached into the faith tradition itself as a source of healing?
Yes, so our counselors do that. Our counselors, and we don't, I will say though that it depends on the client. Some clients are ready and they want to use their religion to help them with their healing. And studies have shown, alhamdulillah, especially with Muslims, that when you use Islam to help them with their healing, with their mental health healing, it's more effective than with any other faith. So alhamdulillah, we know our religion has so much to provide and so much to support, but we also recognize that not everyone is ready for that. So we make sure that if they are, we'll make sure it's available to them. And our counselors do get and do use religious counseling wherever possible. They'll, use things in the Quran and the Sunnah, whether it's telling them or helping them, for example, very simple things like the Prophet, what he did when he was upset, what he did when he was angry. We'll tell them to try these things. We'll use it where we can. And where we fall short with our religious counseling, we make sure, again, to bring in those experts. We have Imams that are psychotherapists also that we reach out to whenever we need support in that. We make sure that, sometimes we'll bring in alima or ustada to come to the homes and do halakas, just talk about, the Sahaba and the Sahabiyat and how they've also experienced challenges and how they overcame those challenges. So a lot of these are just inspirational things to remind them that Islam understands, and our religion is such an incredible religion when it comes to this, because we've seen everything. Our religion has examples for almost everything out there, and it gives us tools, it gives us resources, and it helps us with this healing if we're willing to and if we're able to accept it. And we also, I forgot to mention this, one of the biggest types of abuse that we also see is spiritual abuse. We see a lot of times where abusers unfortunately misquote, misrepresent religious texts and religious teachings to basically to further control and exert power over the victim and the survivor. So a lot of times they come to us wary of these religious texts and these religious teachings because it's been used to hurt them. So a lot of times we're having to kind of teach them that no, this isn't right. This was what they told you was not correct, and this is what it actually is. This is what our religion teaches. So we're teaching them the basics of Islam. We're teaching them, just getting them back into that place of faith.
It's ironical, given that the entire, to me at least, the essence of the Sunnah is to deal with the vulnerable in society.
Exactly.
Whether it be women, whether it be orphans, whether it be people who are poor and hungry, people without shelter.
Yeah.
He did not come for the rich. Freed the slaves.
100%.
And the essence of it is dealing with the vulnerable, using techniques so that the human experience will uplift those who are the most vulnerable in society.
Yeah.
And for our faith to be distorted in this way, it really is tragic that it's then used as a form of oppression when it's supposed to be a form of liberation.
100%.
And that goes across the gender spectrum. Either, I mean, there's some people that they think that women are just simply mechanistic and soulless beings that's just there to, cook, wash, and do those basic household chores.
Yeah.
When the mandate is, she's under no obligation.
Yeah. And we ran a campaign a couple of years ago talking about, the Prophet and his example of what men, the example that we should follow as men. And I remember, because obviously we talk a lot about toxic masculinity and how our culture and our society now makes men think that they have to act a certain way and be a certain way, and that's good and that's right, when it's completely wrong on many levels. But even on a basic religious level, it goes against all our teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, that he taught us, he used to cry in front of people and it wasn't a problem. Now we tell our boys, don't cry, be a boy, be a man, why are you crying? Or he used to help around the house, and now if we see a man just putting his dishes away, this is the woman's job. So all these things that, make men think that it's okay to not have feelings, to not express yourself, and to not be accepted for a man just as a woman is accepted in terms of her emotions and her psychological well-being. This is what forces men to have to resort to negative ways of expressing themselves that hurt people. And the Prophet did not do this. The Prophet was the best example for this, and I truly believe if we were to follow the example of the Prophet, many of our problems would be solved.
All of our problems.
All our problems, you're right. Definitely.
The insight you provide today, I'm sure would have motivated some viewers to want to volunteer for a fantastic service like this. Do you accept volunteers, and how can someone volunteer to assist in this cause? And by volunteer here, I would include as well as those who may not have the time but may have the means and want to provide you some funding or whatever it is, if you can cover both issues at the same time.
Definitely. So in terms of volunteering, we have a volunteer form on our website. Things with COVID have become a little bit challenging. Just because of COVID, we wanted to limit the number of people in the homes and everything. So we've had to put a pause on things, but currently we are accepting volunteers. So on our website, if people were to go to nisahomes.com, so it's NISA homes.com, they will find a volunteer section and they can fill it out. We'll be in touch and we'll explore options that, whether it's in the home or outside of the home, we are always looking for our community to take part in this. I would also say, of course, like you mentioned, if you're not able to volunteer your time, we are accepting, a lot of times we accept new products, so new items that help us with our home, whether it's food, whether it's household items like tissues and whatever else. We're always accepting those. They have to be new. Currently, because of COVID, again, we're just trying to be as careful as possible. And again, that's on our website. Finally, financial support. Of course, we're a new organization. We've only been around for about 5-6 years now, so we do rely on donations very heavily. We've started, alhamdulillah, receiving grants, government grants and support, but majority of our funding is still donation-based. So majority of our funding comes from the community. So we're always looking for donations, financial donations, monthly donations.
And you said you're a charity.
We're a charity, exactly. So you get tax receipts.
You get a tax receipt.
Correct. And that's all on our website. All the information is there.
And we didn't cover one issue, and that is, if any particular viewer outside there needs to reach out to Nisa Homes, what's the best way that they can reach out to you to access your service?
I would say the safest way for them is, they have to find the safest way for them. We're accessible through social media, we're accessible by phone, so we have our confidential phone line that only we as staff respond to. So it's a 1-888 number, so it's toll free. They can reach us at any time. They can email us if they need to. We also have an application on our website. Because we are a transitional home, we're not an emergency shelter. For example, our home is confidential located. We don't share the address with anyone anywhere. You're only given the address the day when you're moving to Nissa Homes. And so we make sure that we ensure safety as much as possible. We have security cameras, we have a security system, we're connected with all the police stations around us, and so we make sure that safety is our top priority. And so when they're reaching out to us, whatever means is safest to them, we'll accept. We have people reaching out to us on Facebook and Instagram. We have people calling us. Whatever works for them, we'll make it work for us, inshallah, as long as we can help. So we have the application on our website, we have an email, we have a phone number that they can reach us at, and I can share that, inshallah. And of course, they can reach out to us through social media. I will add one more thing to that, is if you know someone that's also in a situation that needs help. I think a lot of times, the majority of the people that reach out to us are people that know someone who's in an unsafe situation and they want to help them. And what I always say is, we have a couple of things. We have a couple of things that we recommend. Number one is to listen to that person. See what that person needs. If they're a family member, if they're a friend, the most important thing is to listen non-judgmentally. So that means allow for them to talk and allow for them to just let it off their chest. Sometimes that's all they need. And a lot of times we are quick to want to solve it, or quick to want to say, well, why didn't you do this? Well, maybe you made him angry, maybe you upset him, maybe you did this. I think the most important thing is just to realize that it's not your place. You just want to listen to them right now, and then tell them, what do you need me to do? Find out from that person how you can help them. What can you do to support them? Sometimes they'll need something tangible, like, can you watch my kids while I go speak to Nissa Homes or any other service provider? Can you lend me a couple of $100? Can you pick me up at this time? Things that are tangible. Sometimes it's just a matter of, can you help me find out what I can do? And in those situations, reach out for resources, reach out to us, or there's so many other resources out there right now. There's helplines, there are other services, there's even the police if you need to reach out to them. And we encourage anyone to reach out to us, and we'll just provide information where possible. And of course, bottom line is safety is the most important thing, and we're here for anyone that needs that help, and we're here to listen non-judgmentally, we're here to support, and we're here to provide help wherever possible.
Thank you very much, Sister Yasmine and Youssef, for taking the time out to inform us about Nissa Homes. Regrettably, a much needed service in our community, and I hope you viewers who can assist in this activity can reach out to Nissa Homes as a volunteer, or donations in kind, or by funding, assisting them. Every dollar helps, as well as if you, as a viewer, need the services, please reach out to them. We would have online the website, nissahomes.com, and you access it, and there's a phone number, all the contact information will be there for you. And until next week or next edition of Muslim Perspectives, peace out.
Not in my name, not in